Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. You are about to join a frequency that will open your mind, expand your heart, and activate your spirit. Thank you for joining Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium and Master Energy Therapist. Kelly believes in the power of the Spirit Baby. She speaks with babies in spirit before life, in the womb, and after life. She supports, teaches, and guides others to tune into the intuitive and mystical parts of life for greater wisdom. Join her in meeting your soul baby and build your connection and relationship with deep love and trust. Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio with your host, Spirit Baby Medium, Kelly.
Welcome to episode 143, July 22nd, 2022. The Psychology of Abortion, a Spirit Baby Reboot. What healing comes from abortion? Why does it create so much challenge within cultures? What does the Spirit Baby believe about abortion? And what messages do baby and spirit want parents to know? And here we go, very hot topic, right? There's a lot happening under this umbrella of energy, and I've spoken before in Spirit Baby Radio. I believe a few different episodes were about the topic of abortion or termination, and just to get a little background of where my energy is in that space, many years ago, I was approached to collaborate on an abortion group, and I said, okay. And in that group, it has grown to thousands of people, and it has been, it's on Facebook, and it's called Heart Healing, and it's been taken over by the amazing admin angels, I will call them. They've taken it over and refined it and made it with structure, put on a lot of barriers so no energies come in to troll, right? Of course, it's a very hot troll topic. And in that, at the same time, I had another side group, which was called, I believe it was called Holistic Abortion Healing. And it was really my intentional energy within this space was to create more of a Spirit Baby awareness and a connection, and creating a spiritual, holistic healing experience from pre- and post-abortion. And I believe the group is still up, but it's been archived. The energy wasn't in support at that time, and it's an energy that kind of comes and goes. And I have worked over the many, many years with thousands of people. There have been, I'd say a handful or more of women that have had termination, whether they were a young teenager, whether it was, whether they were already a mother and had a lot of children and certain anxieties and stresses and depression. And I've also worked with medical termination for termination where the baby wasn't compatible with life or their organs were external. I've worked with every different area of birth loss, I would say, especially around abortion. And as I felt like this was a really important conversation to have, to kind of regroup, reboot, and really see. Maybe you're somebody that's in pre-abortion or post-abortion. I'm going to be speaking to both of these spaces. Probably a lot. I'll go back and forth in between to get more of an idea of what that connection is and what I'm talking about. And so, again, I was very inspired to have this conversation because people are asking, what does a Spirit Baby medium, what do they think, feel, sense about this time that we're in? And of course, I do feel like we're in quacky banana times, to put it so lovingly, because there's so many different ideas and rules that keep changing. And it's really just a show of power, money, and of course politics, because, we think that there's one idea put into place and then after many, many years it changes, and it's very confusing, I find, right? But we're in a time at 2020 was a huge crack in the universe of consciousness, we'll say, maybe even a test to humanity. And so, of course, I'm reflecting over what's happening recently, and the overturning of Roe versus Wade, right? And I have a little clip here I cut out just in case people are like, I don't know what that means, or I feel like most people know what that means, but I'm going to just go over it anyways. And so the landmark ruling that limited government restrictions on abortion will allow states to change access to abortion, allowing state legislators to pass laws banning abortions prior to fetal viability. Blue states, however, are looking to expand access to abortion. And so this was from some local newspaper I found online, and I just wanted to give, just energy around the, so much happening. It's, people are throwing energy at each other, body sovereignty, and then it's pro-life, pro-choice, pro-pro. There's so much happening around there, and I have to, I speak from, of course I have my own opinion, and but I see things so differently in the universe, and that came to me at a very young age. It could be because I have these supernatural abilities. It could be because I'm from star planets. There's so many different elements of unknownness on why it is I see through the very energetic fibers of consciousness and life, and I can see, a different story kind of unfolding, as I always do. And even in, I claim to like really, honor both sides of people's experiences of feeling like, the intensity of it. And yet it's such an individual journey for people. There's no maybe clear line of this is how it needs to be, or this doesn't know how it needs to be. And that's the hard part, I feel like, with our conscious evolution right now, is that everybody wants things set in a certain order, and let's look at the numbers and put it all together in a certain way, and we're just not set up that way. It just does not work that way. And I just have to share right now, I saw these two little squirrels running down a tree. How wonderful is that? They're chasing each other, a little family bonding there of squirrels coming through the oak tree in the summer day up here in Topanga, California. I'd like to share that very real moment. And again, coming back to, I'm not going to say the seriousness of it. I mean, I feel like we could look at it in different ways. Of course, there's a tone of quality to the importance of having body autonomy and reproductive rights, but also knowing where the abuses of reproductive rights also in that space. And there's a really great book I found many years ago when I was in that space of learning about how to be more supportive with abortion, post-abortion healing. I even connected with a group and did a workshop with a known woman now who does other bigger work in the birth field. And I met people that were, doing, herbal abortions and self-care and pre and post support, and I found this book, and there's not a lot of books that I've seen, probably now way more, because this is probably like almost 10 years ago at this point. So this woman, her name is Jeanette Paris, and she wrote this tiny little book called The Psychology of Abortion. And really she writes it in looking at religion and different times of history, but also looking at even the goddess Artemis and just using the archetypes. And I just think it's a really powerful read. And it just kind of puts the lens of reproduction through these different archetypes and awarenesses of how we've grown and what we have done and what has become of contraception and sexuality and women's rights. And again, it's this very beautiful pink small book. And let me see here on the back, it says, it's just some really good issues of life and death, love and responsibility at the core of every religion. This is why the English translation of this book was originally published with the title The Sacrament of Abortion, as it shows that the decision to abort may also spring from a religious feeling that is the right thing to do, both physically and spiritually. As Jeanette Paris writes, abortion is about love, life, and death. Oh, look at that. It's powerful. And so, again, if you're somebody that's in the supportive field of abortion, or you're wanting to go deeper into your own psychological space of having had that experience, and remember, I feel like this is the hard one, right? Your experience is your own experience. You get to do what you want with that, and that's the beautiful thing about the freedom of the body and the freedom of our own consciousness, the freedom of our energy, our own divine source, that we are really the internal light of our own creative world and universe. And yes, that is in collaboration with community. But outside communities cannot govern your own internal wisdom. I love that. Let me say that again. I love how that just came to me. Your inner wisdom cannot be governed by outer resources because you are a true, authentic, kind, loving, pure being. Yes, you are imperfect at times, and you do have fears that trigger the shit out of you probably, and that's okay too, as long as you're present to the purity of who you are, and that source of you is really, everything. And so I've met really amazing, great women, well, it's a women's thing, right? Have had to make these choices, whether they felt really positive about it or they felt really negative and mixed about it. Because I would say majority of women that are in the abusive energy of it through their own trauma, and we have to have compassion for that. And that's a really big thing. I feel like if you've gone through abortion, compassion, forgiveness, kindness, and love is literally, I feel like, the 4 top areas that you need to continue to be in relationship with. And even if it was years ago, even if it was recent, because there is something in an energetic level that happens, right? Maybe you were younger and you don't have much consciousness or connection to it, and that happens too. It's not about regret or going back in time, and some people can carry 30, 50 years of regret, and that is your own conscious, that's your own experience of whatever you wanted to awaken to, but it doesn't have to be that way. And that's why I like Jeanette Paris's The Psychology of Abortion. She really talks about the Christian Judeo, upbringing on what that was. But we also know many, many moons ago, century, that women were just there to create. Like there was so much, it was just, and I know maybe it even feels like that nowadays, but it's so, we've evolved, right? We've evolved that the feminine creative force is literally the vessel for humanity, and that alone carries superpowers, right? And so, this again, so what healing comes from abortion, as I was saying a moment ago, it is really the healing of you as the individual. It is the healing journey. There's no, okay, it has to look this way, it has to look that way. And why does it create so much challenge in cultures? And of course, I was just tipping into that, and there's so much more you could, of course, research and read about, history through the Greek-Roman times, through Celtic times. What was the connection to the feminine? And what was the connection as bearing mothers have babies? And women, even back in the day, took their reproductive rights and did what they want. The poor, the rich, and of course the rich always had more opportunity, but it's not a new idea, abortion. It's not just, in the past 100 years, abortion, as I've read, can go back to Egyptian, way back, so many different, I can't give you quoted times. You'd have to do research on that, but throughout the years, I've seen that goes really far back to literally the foundation of when Earth began with people. And so it's not this new thing. And I know people feel like, it's just, there's such a heaviness around it. And Jeanette Paris says that the reason why people are so superly affected by that reproductive right is because everybody's steeped in religion throughout history, through ancestors. I would even say past lives. A lot of, war and, man taking over the structure and idea of the divinity, over the innate natural connection. And so that has been polluted. It has been damaged. It has been feared. And so know right now that anyone that's tuning in, you are subconsciously affected by Judeo-Christian belief systems, even if, I'm not going to say there aren't positive things that you take from it, but a lot of the negative things are very much impactful, right? Because people get triggered by certain things, and fear is so persuasive. And we have to be open and available to that. And you don't have to pick a side. You really don't. And here's what I mean by that. People are like, well, I'm pro-choice, well, I'm pro-life. You don't have to pick a side. I think it's, as I said, it's per person. Of course, if somebody's going through multiple abortions, and it's like, that's intense. And I wouldn't really be upset with the person doing it. I would question the trauma that they have been experiencing to actually go to that extent of birth control, because it's not an easy thing for women to go through, especially if they're getting physical abortions where there's this, this physical thing happening, not just a pill, but like a D&C, or I don't know what the term is for what they call it, but, the releasing of the fetus, of the tissues. I mean, that has to be so incredibly life-changing and painful, and I can only speak through what I've sensed and heard from other people. And so what I've seen, though, I'm going to go more about Spirit Baby, because how does Spirit Baby influence, I say Spirit Baby communication reboot to get your attention, right? What are we rebooting into? Because I do feel like any kind of abortion isn't just what we think it is. I'm just going to go and do this thing and I'm empowered, or I have to do this thing, I'm in an abusive relationship, or, there's no responsibility for the male, right? And this is the big thing, and this is what we hear. Again, that's why abortion is a woman's issue. It's a woman's right. It really has nothing to do with man, I feel. That's my opinion, because of what I've seen energetically and how women are left alone because it's happening in their body. Because if it happened in the male body, then it would be a different story. And so it comes back to women's rights, women's empowerment, women's, support, and that connection with life. Because again, people say, well, what about the male? And you can't make someone be involved in someone's energy. And typically the feminine energy is the intuitive psychic muse. So there's a stronger collaborative energy with this potential soul, right? And so what does the Spirit Baby believe about abortion? That is a very big question, right? What does the Spirit Baby believe about abortion? I'm not going to give you one answer. I'm going to multi-level this connection for you, because there isn't one answer. A baby's not like, you're a bad person, you shouldn't have done this, you killed me, you murdered me, I'm going to be really intense right now, or I'm lost. If anyone ever tells you that, psychically, mediumistically, they are connecting to darker, lower frequencies. And that is their own connection. And so we have to watch, because the truth is, I have talked to many babies that have been through abortion, and some of the parents forget to tell me in the session, but the babies will tell me at times if it's important. And they reveal themselves a certain way to me that shows me that there was a loss. And so these children in between worlds, they're not murdered or killed or dead. But it's okay if we think that way in this world. That's what we do. But those children, those souls, because they're way more than children, those souls, whatever back internal agreement that they have together between life and death, which, by the way, remember, is right in front of us, that's the agreement. That's your connection. And you get to build and make energy and create life in a certain way, right? Because one energy of the veil is through the other side, and one energy of the veil is in this, dimensional space. And so Spirit Baby may have many experiences of what that means, and it is your individual psychic, meditative, spiritual space to be in relationship with it. And again, it doesn't mean it's not going to be without fear, without triggers, without shame, without guilt. All those things are part of it, because that's the human connection. And because you're feeling those things doesn't mean you've done something like you're punished. It doesn't mean that, because think for a moment now, when you were a kid, let's say you grabbed something from somebody because you just were excited about it, and then you felt shame for it. It doesn't mean, oh, you should be, and everyone has a different level of it, right? Some people could be like, oh, why would you grab that? So what, you grab that little candy from that kid and now you feel shame? That's weird. I didn't feel anything. Again, my point is reflecting back. Each person is going to have a different experience with the way they grew up, with their ancestral energy connection, and who they are now. And what does your support look like? That's a big part of it, especially if you're going through pre-abortion, trying to figure out what it looks like, or even post-abortion, the after effects of healing. And so your connection with Spirit Baby being is your own. And I want to promote that. I want you to really be in relationship with that connection of your heart and with the soul of that being, and whatever wants to be in translation. And, the next question would be is what are the messages do Baby Spirit want parents to know? And I know that, again, that there's no one answer for that. And this is the thing I feel like is really big in our time, in our world, and in the spiritual awareness studies. There isn't just a clear-cut answer, and I've been saying this for almost 10 years in this field of Spirit Baby mediumship. Well, there's not supposed to be, and that is the beauty of the soul of individual people. You are an individual soul. You are light, right, and keeping this body doing things, and in that you have past history. you have ancestors, you have connection, and in those stories, things play out to who you are right now in this present moment. And you have very many, I call them time links, of realities that are connecting you right now in this very moment, whether you're in awareness with it or whether you're completely asleep to it. It's still happening if you're asleep to it. So it doesn't mean you have to be aware of it, but being aware of the multidimensional self of who we are, it creates an amazing space of ease because you realize the fullness of who you are, the wholeness of who you are. It doesn't live in the left brain. It doesn't even live in any part of the brain, actually. It lives in this other spiritual aware space, which I don't really have a name for. And many of you may be feeling like, oh, yeah, I know that space, and you're right, it doesn't have a name. And so whereas the brain is some kind of a sense of driving energy, like it's the driver of this, of what's this physiological cellular part, the energetic frequency beyond that is really everything. And remembering that, again, will create that space of ease, comfort, awareness, connection, and that you understand that life and death is right in front of us at every moment. It's not this separation, this division. And the more that there is that agreement with it, I'm telling you, the sense of ease, the relaxation of your shoulders, your whole system, you get to be in love with life in such a beautiful way. And sometimes people, we do this in different ways, but the sense of our own, our own light connection. And so, your connection to your spirit baby through abortion is your own. It's nobody's business. That agreement, that connection, and however you want to heal with it is up to you. Really, there is no, you have to do it a certain way. And what your baby wants you to know is up to you. You can listen intuitively and without even connecting with baby, or you can connect with the spirit of your children or child that you've had experience with that kind of loss. And so, really big times right now, as I said, with abortion and rights, and it's supposed to be like that. And I'm going to share with you, I'm just trying to think a few different stories that have come up throughout the years. I've had people come to me in pre-abortion, and I don't get a lot of people in current energy of abortion, and I know there's an energetic reason for that. I think because I've set my energy up to work with babies that want to be born. That's what I'm told. Babies want to come into intuitive, untraumatized parents, and I'm here to be of service for that because I can. And so I've noticed a lot of the fertility going into fertility or conception into pregnancy that I get not a lot of women that are like, oh, I want to have an abortion right now, Kelly, should I do it, right? Which is always a big question. And my answer is always going to be, well, what do you feel? Because it's not really up to me. Or let's talk to the baby. The baby isn't going to interfere and be this in between with me. I'm not going to say, oh, well, this baby wants this or that. Or, I don't feel like, I really feel like it's such an individual, personal, private experience. And so women that come to me, if they're on the edge of wanting an abortion, most of the time, I bet you those children just want to be born because you're coming to me. But there are other experts and specialists, and I always do have a referral list for those that are working with Spirit Baby that are that can come with maybe a message or support in that way. And so, trying to think another story. So, I've had a woman come in. This was many years ago, probably like 5 years ago, in pre-abortion, and she was really doing her chakra meditations and feeling really good, and it felt like a good thing between her and her partner. And I remember telling her, it's not going to be without feeling. So here's the thing: if you're doing pre-abortion ceremony ritual, it may not be what you think it is, because you may have a grief experience regardless. You may have crying and tears and sorrow because there is a level of death, right? And so the level of death in between that energy is supposed to be in your space. And so, because what I've heard throughout the many years, women that have had abortions, they feel grief afterwards. They feel terrible, even if it was something that felt conscious. And maybe there's a percentage in there, that feels happy and joyful and empowered, and there's no judgment in that. But the women that come to me, I should say, feeling very mixed and confused. And so I remember this one woman came to me, and she was very much torn. And I said, I know you're feeling bad. I said, we talked about that. You would feel bad, but you have to process the grief and the feelings around that and see what wisdom is coming to you. And that's the part that women get lost in. Like, where's the wisdom? Like, I don't feel good. And, because there's one moment, there's life, and then it feels like there's light and life inside me, and then the moment it's gone. And of course there's going to be feelings. You're a human being, and how amazing is that you have feelings about it, because it's a big deal. It's a big deal in your reality, and you're connecting with it, and you're doing whatever you want it to do with it. And of course you can do ritual, ceremony, really healing the energies in between. Sometimes there's a lineage energy in there too, of your mother's mother's mothers, father's father's fathers, and there can even be reproductive birth losses in there as well, and rights and all this stuff. And so you're just kind of, you're showing up to do the inner work and connecting in a very conscious way. And so, there's no safe space, whether it's pre or post-abortion. It's going to always be with feeling. And I noticed a lot of women would come after, and they just want to hear their baby, and what's my baby's purpose? What was their mission? I wanted them to be born, but they couldn't be born for so many different reasons. And I would say, okay, then that's the discovery. That's the self-inward journey of looking at that connection. And spirit babies through abortion have shared different things with me in different times. Different people around the world have different experiences and their culture. And most babies, I would say a high percentage of the time, they're never upset. I've never seen a baby like really upset, unless the parent is creating a lot of energy around them not listening to what this healing journey is about. And I feel like, yet again, there's not one way to bring the healing, to bring the connection. And so if you find yourself in that post place, there are things that you should do, especially if it's immediately after or years later, is tell somebody about it. Whether it's a healer, a counselor, a friend, a family, somebody that can really hold, remember, compassion, kindness, love, and forgiveness with you, because that's what you really need. Because you may feel alone inside, you may feel confused, and there's a lot happening. And talk to spirit baby beings. They want to talk to you. And sometimes they come back. A lot of times they're like, okay, let's work a different level of consciousness and come back into creation. And other times they won't come back, because maybe you're just not open and available to having that relationship in this timeline, and that's up to you. There's no shame or fear or slap your hand, you're such a bad girl. It's not that at all. And so you get to build the compassionate connection with it and really looking at it. And so having that support is so crucial. And that's why, together in this, I created this heart healing abortion group just for that reason. I just didn't know it was going to blow up so much. I think it's over 5,000 now. And it's been a hard accepting people, because there's not enough people to accept people, and we really have to watch the trolls and have, make sure the rules are followed. And so I think it was even shut down temporarily. It was fascinating. I believe it was shut down temporarily before Roe versus Wade, which was, I feel like, is very intuitive psychic, but nobody knew at that point. And then it was, we have to slow it down. There's a lot happening there. And again, we need support. Everyone needs support in that space. And that also adds me to share this one book that I got. It's an old book, and you're going to laugh, because you're going to hear a quote I'm going to read, and it's going to show how it's an old book. But it's a really great book. So let's say you're in post-abortion, and you're just like, what the heck? I find this book, it has a lot of questions, looking at the anger, looking at your family, looking at your culture. It's so great, and it's very easy to read. Toxic guilt, there's even, they talk about that. There's little quotes of inspiration, and there's all these different parts. And it's called The Healing Choice, Your Guide to Emotional Recovery After an Abortion. And the author is Candace, and the last name is D-E-P-U-Y, and Dana Dovich, D-O-V-I-T-C-H. And I want to read this one part I really thought was helpful for those in healing after abortion. Chapter 1, The Pregnancy, Healthy Coping Alternatives. I'm going to read this quote I got here. No single coping mechanism works best for women who experience distress on their abortion day. But when women who report the least amount of emotional aftermath describe common threads, self-knowledge, a realistic assessment of their resources, and a truthful evaluation of the people and the supportive elements that exist around them. The woman we spoke with recalled things that helped them on the day, such as proper nutrition, extra rest, employing relaxation techniques. They used helpful coping strategies such as carrying a favorite pillow, bringing an audio cassette player with calming music, wearing comfortable clothes such as sweats and sneakers, or praying off and on throughout the day. And of course you heard him say bring an audio cassette player, the dating, but also that, what is this book? Yeah. You could bring your phone or any type of, audio using that healing, loving music. Oh, it's from 1997 was the book. And so really why I really wanted to share that quote more than anything, because your self-care on the journey and the connection to that is really important, or even the people in your life that have gone through that. And yes, maybe you have judgments and you have your own opinions, but they're your own. If we want to really move into a reality of love and connection, then we have to support people in certain ways and see behind the story, see the purity of energy. And spirit baby communication in pre-abortion is absolutely incredible. And in that pre-abortion, just talking to baby, like, this is what we're going to go through, this is going to happen. And because here's the thing, I know that people say, well, maybe there's no baby because it's, maybe it's the first few weeks, there's just barely any tissue, and excuse me, and what does that really mean? And I just feel like any kind of loss, there's always a soul connection. And we get to do what we want with that. You don't have to believe me. But I've seen these little beings with people that didn't tell me they had abortions, boys, girls, and I'm like, oh, and then I find out later, excuse me, through friends or different people, like, oh, hey, or they confess to me, and I'm like, oh man, that makes sense to me. And so there's always some connection, and we get to heal with that. And so in pre-abortion, do ritual ceremony, connect, work with a healer, a medium, or somebody that could be psychologist, counselor, that could be of highest holistic support on the journey, is going to be transformative. And if you're in post-abortion, it's okay to also bring that level of healing, ritual ceremony, getting that healing medium, counselor, therapist support, to then evolve through it, to transform through it, and to bring it into a deep level with who you are. And I've seen this. One woman, she had abortion after she had children, and it just wasn't in her story in reality. And so she was scared. Am I going to be anxious? Am I going to go into anxiety? Am I going to go into depression? This is so dangerous. And she started sitting in meditation and had literally felt like energy left her body, and this new energy came through to give her whatever it was that she was asking for, whether it was a blessing, some maybe divine miracle intervention, but it literally transformed her life. And I do feel like something I spoke about many years ago was the transformation of abortion healing that brings something into the psychic space, into the psychological space of women and sometimes couples. And yet, I'm speaking in the energy of one person in this space, but of course there are couples that have conscious abortions together. And that's a different show. That's a different podcast. And maybe you're somebody that's done that. And I would absolutely love to interview you in this space, as if there's couples, any kinds of couples that have had, a ritual ceremony in the process, and what that meant for each individual, and what that means today in the present time. And of course, you can email me at spiritbabymedium@gmail.com. And so wherever you are on your journey, or maybe again you are somebody that supports abortion, or maybe you're somebody that gets very upset about abortion, and so continuing to see the expansive energy around it. There's no fine path to one thing, right? And that's the hard part, is that it's going to be very messy for now, and it's going to be all over the place. And that each individual case-by-case connection is where you see the energy evolving into. And so spirit baby being in termination, abortion, still loves you. There's still connection. There's still beauty and grace and, again, the purity of love. And so know that whatever the messages that want to come through or shared, you just continue to be open and be of guidance and, again, be of support and love. And so I send you off with many blessings, and I want to thank you for joining episode 143, The Psychology of Abortion, Spirit Baby Communication Reboot. And if you like my podcast, please subscribe, leave reviews, and of course, join my newsletter. You get a Spirit Baby Tip 101 video. And check out my book. It's called Sacred Communication, Spirit Baby Journal. And, of course, Spirit Baby Oracle cards, Answers from Spirit Baby, which are used in conception, pregnancy, birth loss, such as termination, miscarriage, stillbirth, and later loss as well. And thank you again for joining, and hold on for this.
This is Spirit Baby Radio. Thank you for joining Kelly in the energy of awareness, love, healing, and soul communication. Please join the next episode at www.soulbabycommunication.com.